G'day, folks, and welcome to the Vookcast, Australia's Nintendo podcast. My name's Oliver Brandt, and in this episode, I'm joined by Angelo Valdivia,
Hey, paisanos.
Michael Goncalves,
Hey, team.
and Luke Henderson.
Hello there.
Welcome to the first episode of the Vookcast for 2025. We had a nice little break. I mean, I say we had a nice little break. Let's be real, we had similar breaks basically all throughout 2024.
It's a presumption
Sometimes
that
even longer.
It's a presumption that it was nice there, Ollie.
I feel like this is probably our shortest break between a Vookcast in a long time, to be honest.
Anyway, we had a nice, well, we had a break. Maybe it was nice, maybe it wasn't. But we are back. I'm not going to commit to definitely a good schedule because who knows. We'll try to do them every fortnight and see how we go. In this episode, we are going to talk about, last year, this year, everything in between, everything beyond that. There's a lot of Switch-y stuff to talk about. There's a lot of Switch 2-ish stuff to talk about. Before we get into the big stuff, because we are going to go over our predictions from last year and our predictions for the year ahead, as we do in the first episode of every podcast. Every year. We will just go over some news, some posts. So we'll start off with a news story that is, a bad thing that ultimately turned into a goodish thing. In November, Vook and a couple other people spotted an unpacking game on the eShop that was not unpacking by Australian developer Witchbeam. It was just pure gambait, like Unity asset flip bullshit. On December 17, after a lot of pushing, media coverage, Vook was making statements to other outlets and stuff. It has finally been removed, and I think just a couple days ago it was removed from the last couple stores that still had the game up. So this isn't the first time something like this has happened. There are a lot of games that are like just obvious rip-offs of other games. They just usually don't call themselves Unpacking Deluxe Edition, which was a pretty big sign from the get-go that it probably wasn't legitimate. And Nintendo really should be doing something about this. But, this is not a problem that is unique to Nintendo by any means. Like, it happens on the PlayStation Store quite often. It happens on Steam, obviously, because anybody can chuck something up on Steam. Xbox Store as well. The only one that it doesn't really happen on is the Epic Game Store, but that has its own problems because that's like filled with scam ass NFT games. So, there aren't any good stores, just better stores. And unfortunately, the Switch store is not one of them at the moment. Huge props to like literally everybody who wrote a story about this. Because, Unpacking is a smaller game. Yes, it won a whole bunch of awards, rightly so, but it's really hard to get a company to do anything about something like this. Getting Nintendo to actually pay attention requires a lot of media coverage and a lot of anger and frustration directed at the company to do it. So it's good that...
What probably made this a little sadder for the folks at Witchbeam is this is not the first time it's happened to them. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks after the game first released, a really shitty mobile version released. And I don't even know if that's gone yet. I might still be up, but it was up for a long time. So this is now the second time they've had to deal with people trying to, release crap based off their success. So
yeah. And then this is something that happens in the mobile space a lot. If you search for literally any game on like the App Store or the Google Play Store, you will find knockoffs galore. It's so much worse on the Google Play Store, but like the App Store still does it too. And like if you look through the IARC submissions or like the Australian Classification Board submissions, if you type in something like, Silksong. Not that I'm constantly looking at Silksong on the Australian Classification Board website, but like there's like 600 games that have been submitted under the name Silksong, and like that's like Silksong Night Hollow or like whatever. It's just like some random combination of SEO words that are just like smashed through IARC because it's free if you're only doing digital distribution to get your game rated for release in Australia, which is required to get on any of the stores. So yeah, it's I don't think anyone has solved the problem of this kind of spam, apart from again the Epic Game Store, which has its own issues.
I will say I will call out Epic Games Store for one good thing, and I've told you about this, Ollie, previously. When you search for a game, if they don't have it on their store, they'll generally provide you with like, hey, this other store might have it. So they don't direct you to Steam because that'd be weird. But if you search for a game that's not on Epic, they'll at least say, hey, we don't have it, but it is available on these other places, which I think is pretty cool.
But like the only reason that like the Epic Game Store isn't just filled with shit is because like it's a curated store rather than just a pay to get on it store. Theoretically,
well, usually
all
Epic pay you to get on the store, not you pay Epic to get on the store.
That's true. You know, theoretically, console storefronts are curated as well, but I mean, we've seen how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts on this unpacking situation?
It shouldn't have taken as long as it did to fix, but I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like
for an outcome like this to come out relatively positive, as it has, like there are hundreds of other games where it isn't quite the same.
Yeah.
And you know, Unpacking is the one that just got noticed by, you know, people like the ones who by media people like the ones who work for Vooks, etc., etc. But yeah, I'm sure there are dozens of other examples of games of similar scale that happen too, and then hundreds more of even smaller ones. So it's a real problem.
it is a huge problem. And I don't know how you fix that problem without just going to a fully curated model, and that is a lot of work for any company. Work that they should be doing, but you know, work and resources nonetheless. Yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic, Witchbeam's next game is coming out at some point this year. It's like
Tempopo?
a rhythmy, yeah, Tempopo. It's like a rhythmy kind of. It's like rhythm game meets Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
Yeah.
And it looks super fun. It's got like some like Lemmings elements as well. The announcement trailer was just phenomenal. So yeah,
I got to play that one at PAX 2022. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
And back then they weren't even sure if it would become a full thing, so they were just sort of getting player feedback based on what they were showing at the show, and I really liked it because it's a puzzle game, but because everything moves in time to the music, it's got this really cool catchy beat happening as you're trying to move around and work out, if I go here that means this enemy does it and all that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I like a good puzzle game and I like a good music game. So
look, man, if there's one genre that's been severely lacking in recent years, it's definitely rhythm games. So I'm glad that a game like Tempopo and hopefully Ratatan comes out soon as well. Oh boy, I'll be living in absolute heaven at that point.
For sure. That's about it in terms of news. We will talk about some maybe news in a little bit. For the moment, let's talk about we had a bunch of awards as we do every year at Vooks. Yeah, our game of the year at Vooks was The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Well deserved, I think. I think that's the one that I put on the top of the ballot too. I'm just saying, like, the fact that my choices were, you know, the ones that won is cool. Anyway,
I voted for Astrobot for Game of the Year. I'm just saying.
well, you know.
I mean, it's the best Mario
indie...
game out this year, so last year.
That's true. It was the best Mario game that came out last year. Indie Game of the Year went to Balatro, which it couldn't have gone to anything else. Like, let's be real. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was the non-tender Game of the Year, so the game on another platform. Although, you know, who knows? Later this year, we might be giving it Nintendo Game of the Year because, maybe it'll come out on Switch too. And the most anticipated, which is largely just a joke category at this point, is just Switch 2. Switch 2 is the most anticipated thing, which, sure. Some other ones. Aussie Indie of the Year went to The Plucky Squire. It launched in a bit of a rough space, but they've put a lot of work into updating
That
it.
most recent update made me so happy. Like, I've already finished the game. I'm not going back to play it. But for those who are not aware, the developers released on PC. I don't think it's come to console just yet. But they put out an update that basically removes the hand holding, because they're like, hey, we finally realized that some players aren't kids anymore. So it still does a little bit, but they took a lot of that hand holding away. And I'm like, that was one of my biggest gripes about the game, is it just kept. It's like you wanted to push forward, and the game's like, oh, hang on, let me explain this one thing to you. You're like, oh. So I'm happy that came out.
Yeah. And that category was actually like really competitive. We like basically there was like one vote difference between all of the possible games. Like we had Arco, the Godfeather, which is a very funny game. Wild Bastards, 8-Bit Adventures 2, all of them like within one vote of each other. So yeah.
It just goes to show how out of the loop I am. I did not realize that Plucky Squire was Australian made until like 2 months ago, even though I've been following this game for like 2-3 years. And then same thing with Wild Bastards. I had no idea that game was Australian until just now.
Isn't Wild Bastards
and Void Bastards.
Oh, I'm thinking of something else. Never mind. I was going to say, isn't it by the same people who did the Cactus game, but that was Witchbeam.
Yeah, that was Witchbeam. Assault Android Cactus.
Yeah.
We also had the biggest surprise of the year was Alamo, which was a surprise to everyone, for better or for worse.
I mean, the fact that Nintendo dropped new hardware in 2024 and it wasn't Switch 2, I think that's what sort of surprised everyone.
And yeah, the biggest news moment of the year was the announcement of Emio the Smiling Man, which was announced in such a weird way that sort of captivated a lot of people. Yeah, I think that was really, really good.
I think Emio caught everyone off guard because Nintendo Australia traditionally are about 12 to 14 hours behind on their YouTube uploads at earliest compared to like Nintendo of America or Europe. So like, the Switch Online stuff will go up, midday on Wednesday, for example, for Nintendo of America, but then Nintendo of Australia will put it up on like Friday afternoon. But the Emio thing hit every single Nintendo channel on YouTube and social at the same time globally, and that was like what sort of threw everyone.
Just never happened. Like even like direct announcements rarely happen like that. So like the fact that this was like it felt like something big. I mean, it was still Famicom Detective Club, but it was kind of a big deal that all of the Nintendos managed to coordinate on that, which we should hopefully see with the new console announcement as well. Although I wouldn't put it past Nintendo Australia still being a little bit behind. Not their fault by any means.
No.
They have a lot of hoops to jump through for getting approval on particular assets and stuff, and it's a lot to get anything done there. So I think we kind of discussed this, but what was our favorite Switch game of 2024 and just overall favorite game of 2024? I would say this doesn't necessarily have to be games released in 2024 if you just like played them for the first time last year.
Yeah, good, because I didn't play anything new last
year.
year.
I was putting that in specifically for you, Angelo.
I don't play new games anymore.
They're new when you play them. They're just not out that same week when you play them.
I buy them brand new and then I wait about a year before I actually pop them in. Well, so for me, there are a few Nintendo games I did get around to playing. I finished Super Mario RPG, the remake, only just a few weeks ago actually. And then even just like this week, I bought Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble because I completely forgot about that game and then got reminded, I'm like, oh shit, I meant to buy that game. So I've been getting onto that just a couple of days ago. But yeah, like in terms of like some of the bigger new ones, like for example, I've got Zelda Echoes of Wisdom like on release, but I just haven't popped it in yet and played it. Most of the games I've been playing are just like the ones on the Nintendo Switch retro apps, Minish Cap, Paper Mario Original, all those kinds of games. Mostly because they were ones that I was able to play long distance with my partner over the internet. Because I think I've mentioned here a few times, you can do like online co-op through those internet apps by like kind of sharing the controller over the internet, which is really really great if you're long distance or you're on a trip or something like that. Or yeah, so that's basically what I did with the Switch last year. Oh, and I dipped a little bit more into Tears of the Kingdom, but I don't know. That was kind of my Nintendo game of 2023, but compared to Breath of the Wild just hooked me in so much harder than Tears of the Kingdom did, which is kind of disappointing for me. So yeah, still
That's
chipping
fair.
away at that game, but I've never really fallen deep into it.
I had the exact opposite thing happen. I just did not click with Breath of the Wild at all. It took me like 2.5 years to actually get through that game. But then Tears of the Kingdom came out, and like I played that in like 6 days. They
Mm.
rolled credits after 6 days and did most of the stuff in the game. I did not sleep. So
Yeah, fair
yeah.
enough.
For me, my favorite Switch game of 2024 was the Smiling Man. I've talked about this at length. I think it's a really fantastic game and very not Nintendo. Like in both its content and its execution. I think it was really, really well done. And I think we need more like small experimental kind of games from Nintendo. And I think this is a really good first step for that. Overall game of 2024, it's a hard one to place. We were like doing these at work and like trying to come up with like everybody's like big games of the year, and like I just like I don't think there's anything that is like the like highest tier, right? Like there's just nothing that came out last year that like was demonstrably above anything else. I loved Dragon's Dogma 2. I loved Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. There's just so much there that came out that was good that like I can't like put anything above the top. I would say if it was going to be anything, it would be Dragon's Dogma 2. But that's not because of the game itself, but because of how we played it at work, in which we had like 6 people playing it. Obviously, there weren't any guides. There was nothing for us to reference. And every single day, like we had that for 3 weeks before the game came out, and every single day we would like jump into the group chat that we had for that game, and it would be like, oh, did you know you could do this? And everybody else would like freak the fuck out because it's like, holy shit, I had no idea. Like the fact that like there was this puzzle that like we all like smashed our heads against for like 2 days, and then somebody came up and was like, oh yeah, I just like picked up my rook and threw them across the chasm, because you can just pick up your follower guy and throw him across a place, and that solved the puzzle. I was like, well, okay. We've been trying for like 2 days now to solve this.
So
that happened.
what you're
every
saying
single
is that really just brought back the whole, you went back to school on a Monday morning
yeah,
and talked about the game you played over the weekend.
yeah, it kind of was, but it was like every single day we were coming up with new discoveries. Like there was this like Sphinx puzzle, and it's like we had no idea how to solve it because you needed to bring something back, and there wasn't enough time to do it. And then like the solution was to just like die and respawn there after you've already got the item. It was just like really clever. And then like the next day somebody would just come up with like, oh, I did it in a completely different way. I don't think either of us had identical playthroughs. And just that discovery process of like playing through with a group of people that like and like you don't really get that opportunity anymore, because like you can do it, but like everybody's looking up guides. So in this case it was like something that we ruined for everybody else. It's like that experience was like wonderful and the best part of the game, but we did it because we needed to write guides for the game, and now nobody else gets that experience because everybody wrote guides for it. So yeah. But yeah, that was probably the biggest and the most enjoyable experience I had with games last year. Michael, do you want to talk about Hell Let's Loose?
I mean, it's definitely the game I played the most last year. But I think the game this game didn't even come out in 2024, but it came out late 2023. My most enjoyed game last year was the Talos Principle 2. I played Talos Principle 1, I think in 2023, like early 2023. And I just enjoyed the absolute shit out of that game, like so much. And the second one came out end of 2023, and this second one is just incredible. It's a visual delight to begin with. It runs in UE5. But more than that, it's just the puzzles and story is just so cool. Like I love that world, like so much. I have to go back and play the DLC stuff. It's awesome. But yes, also Hell Let Loose. I looked the other day. I think the last time I saw how many hours I'd played, it was like 70 something. And then a whole group of work friends started playing it recently because it was on sale on Steam. And then like a week after they bought it, it was the Epic Games free game of the week. So there's a shit ton of new players playing the game right now. And I saw it, and it's 280 hours I've played now. So yeah, it's well and truly like got me like big time.
I was saying to Michael like a little bit ago that like every time I log on to my computer for like work, because I start work at 8 p.m. every single time I log on, it's like within the first hour I just see like that little Steam notification pop up and it's like, oh, you know, Michael's playing Hell Let Loose, and it was like
It's
every
insane.
day.
Yes.
So
Okay, I just want to point out it's not every single day, but sure.
it felt like every single day. I felt like if I was getting a Steam notification, it was that you were playing that game.
As far as Nintendo Switch games or Nintendo games, goddamn, I don't know. I think I barely played anything on Switch this year. Like it's been rough. I started playing Brothership, which I really enjoyed, but I really couldn't get over the load times of that game. Like it's so immersion breaking. Like you get into combat, it's like a long load. Get out of combat, it's a long load, and combat's everywhere. You do anything, it's a long load. You move somewhere, it's a long load. And I really enjoy the game. It's just too much. I felt like literally 50% of the game I was playing was just loading times. So I'm hoping Switch 2 maybe solves part of that a little bit, but I guess we'll see. Because I will definitely go back and play that like big time. I super enjoyed it.
Did you play Thousand Year Door? That was last
Not on Switch, but I'm sure it's amazing. I don't know about I don't think the 30 FPS will really impact like that much. Like it's not that style of game. It's like obviously like, you know, a little bit disappointing, but I'm sure it's fine. But also you can just play it on GameCube if I need to. Like it's not like it looks awful on Cube. It's just
Yeah, see, like so far, pretty much all these Nintendo games that have been mentioned that released last year in 2024, like I bought them all, but just haven't played them. Like I think last year was definitely of the most retail Nintendo games that I bought that I just didn't play.
Mm.
Yeah,
and that's
I mean,
a bit of a
Super
shame.
Mario
I don't know.
Party-
I don't know if that's on me or if just other games that really took my attention or what happened. But yeah,
I was gonna say Super Mario Party Jamboree. I did play a little bit of that as well. On that.
another one
Still
that's
gotta
just
play that.
sitting up there.
Like,
yeah.
We keep
Same.
saying that we're
It's just up there.
gonna play together.
We
just
have to
never
play.
did. All right, Luke, tell us your favorite Switch game and overall.
A favorite Switch game is Prince of Persia: Lost Crown, that released like second week of January.
That's a good one.
I played through like Luigi's Mansion for review and Echoes of Wisdom for review and all that, and they were fine. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, it's just a HD version of a game I've already played. So it
I
wasn't gonna
just
do anything
completely
special.
forgot that even came out. If I'm being honest, like I didn't even realize that it was on Switch, and then I was like, oh yeah, I guess they did that, huh?
Yeah, so done by Tantalus down in Melbourne there. So yeah, that was fine. Echoes of Wisdom, like I liked it as far as the Zelda game went, like that style of game, and the whole, you know, being able to summon items in randomly to solve puzzles your own way, that was fine and everything. But the management system for that was absolutely dog shit. There was no way of actually finding cool things. And then by the end of the game, I had more things I'd never actually used than I'd actually used in that. Because like, oh, you can scan this tree, you can scan this box, you can scan this. It's like, cool. There's so many things I'd scanned just for the sake of scanning it, but then never actually used it. So I felt it was a little bloated around that mechanic. Like it worked, but I think they could have refined it a little more. But Prince of Persia, I love that series. I love Prince of Persia games. The originals, but the Sands of Time and that sort of trilogy, or technically there's 5 in that series now. But I love those. So I was very excited for this one, and being that it was a Metroidvania, which is why when Ubisoft apparently, axed the studio or the team making it and divvied them up into other projects, that's a bit sad. But the non-Nintendo game of the year, it's Indiana Jones, just hands down. It's just like they got what indie was supposed to be. And look, if Indiana Jones didn't release last year, it would have been Star Wars Outlaws. I think both those games really understood the worlds that they were in, the characters that were in those worlds, but indie was just a better experience at the end of the day. So
Outlaws was good too.
Mhm.
I know it was like sort of panned and it didn't sell super well, but man, what a banger of a game.
I
don't think
love
like
it. I really
anything
did.
has made me like enjoy Star Wars in the past like 10 years as that has. Like that was like the most enjoyable.
but
It was like
that
I played that and I was like, wow, Star Wars can actually be good.
but I love that the
Star
reason
Wars
people
can have a good
hated it.
story.
Yeah.
The reason people hated it is because like, oh, the enemies would spot you too easy. It's like, well, don't run around like a numpty. It's like, if it's a stealth experience, be stealthy. So there's all these complaints that people were making. I just didn't get them. Like, I didn't have those problems. I was able to enjoy the game completely, playing it the way they intended. And now all the stealth's basically been gutted from the game with all the updates. It's still there, but it's not like punishing anymore. It's like the whole point of a stealth game is that you're supposed to be stealthy. And if you play it like it's Call of Duty, of course you're gonna fail. In the same way that if I play Animal Crossing like it's bloody Five Nights at Freddy's, I'm not going to have the right experience. So,
Well, but the thing
Um,
about playing as a scoundrel in Star Wars anyway is that like you sneak in, everything's fine halfway through, and then just everything, all the shit hits the fan, and then you have to blast your way out anyways. Like that's just Star Wars. That's how it's always been. It's how
Yeah.
they got into the first Death Star.
And that's how like the missions are designed, right? Like it's like they usually do like, oh, you have to do some stealth, and then after that, when the shit hits the fan, you blast
Yeah,
your
you-
way out.
yeah, you got to get out of dodge, so to speak. So, like, I really liked Outlaws, but I just had a few issues with it overall that weren't what people are complaining about. I didn't like Kay. I thought she was annoying. Like, she was all like, I'm amazing, and then I have no idea what I'm doing, and then I'm amazing again. It's like, she bounced back and forth too much for me. But, yeah, again, Outlaws fantastic, but Indiana Jones just so much better.
All right, we'll move on to our next thing. So the Switch, like, let's be real, this is the final year of the Switch. We said that last year and it didn't happen, but I don't think there's any chance that we get through this year and the successor isn't announced. So this is the last year where only the Switch is coming from Nintendo.
I think like
Um,
every year that I've been on this podcast, I've always said was the last year of the Switch. So. And that's what we're coming into the 5th year now, 6th year maybe.
Anyway, so we're sending the Switch off in style with the 2025 lineup. There are a lot of games that have been announced for the Switch, and that's just like the first couple months. So there are 35 games dated for release until mid-April, and 57 games given 2025 release windows for Switch. Undated games include Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Pokemon Legends ZA, Tron Catalyst, Rune Factory, Gardens of Azuma, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD Remake. What was that, Michael?
Sorry, I forgot about Professor Layton, and I'm so fucking ready.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so much, like, next week Donkey Kong Country Returns HD comes out.
You mean Donkey
Freedom...
Kong Country returns?
Yes.
Return Squared.
There's Freedom Wars Remastered just came out the other day. I do want to check that out whenever there's time, but February's coming up. Later this month we have Hello Kitty Island Adventure, which is something a lot of people have been looking forward to. There's Tales of Grace's F Remastered, which is quite good. Civ 7 next month.
Yeah.
That's in March.
Yeah, March 20.
March 20, the same day as Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is a choice. I mean, it's not gonna. Neither game is going to affect each other. Like, I could not think of more diametrically opposed fan bases than Assassin's Creed and Xenoblade Chronicles.
I mean, Doom and Animal Crossing, but
Well, yeah.
I
That
don't know
worked in
about
its
that.
favour.
I think
That
there's
worked in its
quite a
favour.
distinct Venn diagram that overlaps there.
So
It
yeah,
was a
like
circle.
February we've got Civilization 7. You know, there's the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Day collections, which I'm very excited about. Tomb Raider 426 remastered. You know, so much stuff. March we have the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remasters. Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Which can I just point out, they've been counting down on social media, like 56 days to go, 55 days to go. It's like, I still remember when you said 300 days to go. This game's been coming for like 7 years at this point. I'm sick and tired of seeing it.
Yeah, there's a new Atelier game. There's a new Gal Guardians game, which is, who knew? Yeah, there's just so much stuff that is coming out. It's impossible to go through all of them. But like the fact that we're like, you know, likely months, if not days away from, you know, the Switch 2 being announced. There's already this many games slated for the first console. I mean, it's not surprising. 150 million people have Switches. Developers absolutely want access to that huge ass install base.
I think it's more hilarious that you said there's an Atelier game coming out on the 21st of March. Atelier Yumié, The Alchemist of Memories in the Envisioned Land. And I mean, if Koei Tecmo could stop making up these super long, obnoxious titles, I'd be very happy. But there's also another Atelier game coming out. It's in the list in the undated section. Atelier Res Larina and the Red Alchemist and the White Guardian, and it's some version of a mobile game or something. So yeah. I just thought it was interesting. There's two more Atelier games coming to Switch. There's already like 15 on there.
I don't know how Gust does it, because Gust is the developer of the Atelier games, and they like release 2 games every single year. And these are like 70-hour JRPGs, and like every single year they come out with 2 of them. I don't understand how they do it. I thought like, you know, RGG Studio coming out with a new Like a Dragon game every single year was like super impressive, and like now they've got other things as well that come out. But like 2 games of that scale every single year, and most of them are like pretty good if you're a fan of the series. There are some aspects that I don't like of those games, so I don't play them, but yeah, it's wild that any developer can release 2 games a year and have them be good. But Gust does it somehow.
I was just going through the list and I just saw that Croc's still in there. I'm like, oh yeah, Croc's coming out this year. And Gex.
That's exciting. Yeah, I mean, less exciting. It's Gex. I like Gex from like a conceptual standpoint. No, I like Gex. I like it a lot. It's just not good.
Watch your
Glover.
filthy mouth.
If we're talking about old school games coming back, Glover's coming back.
Yeah. I mean, we have that new what is it, Ninja Gaiden game coming this year?
Ninja Gaiden Rage Bound.
Super keen for that. We've got the Pac-Man edgy Metroidvania, which I could not be more excited for. Yeah, it's a big year. And that's just Nintendo stuff.
Just a shame that Switch is dead. See you later.
Yeah. But you know, backwards compatibility on Switch 2 means that all of these games will be playable on Switch 2. So.
Alrighty. When I pulled this list together, I was like, oh, there's only going to be, you know, a few. And I've just kept going and going. I'm like, okay, there's way more than I thought there'd be.
Yeah.
And then don't forget all of those like AI knockoffs that'll be coming straight after the main releases of these games as well.
That's true. Yeah, so before we move on to our feature discussion, we will just have a talk about apparent leaks. Now, I want to preface this discussion by saying that, like, these, like, you know, we're going to call them leaks. They're not leaks, they're rumors at best, right? Like, all of these things completely unconfirmed. They could be entirely wrong. It's just, like, whispers of whispers and, like, CAD files that are floating around the internet. Like, it's, like, none of this is confirmed by any means. But there's been so much of it in the past, like, week even. Like, the last 2 weeks, there's been so much that people are calling leaks. I thought we would talk about them briefly and talk about what that means. So the things that we know about Switch 2, 100%, it's going to be announced before the 1st of April, and it's going to have backwards compatibility. Those are the two things we 100% know.
They're the
So
two
we
things
don't
Nintendo
know it's
said.
made by Nintendo.
We don't know who makes it, really. It could be.
We also know about everything that's been leaked in the past 2 weeks. Let's go.
So there are certain things that have been like somewhat certainties. So there's like apparently an 8-inch 1080p screen. The form factor is going to be very similar to the Switch. There's new Joy-Cons that look a lot like the old Joy-Cons, but have a mysterious button that says C on it. What's that for? Nobody knows. Is it even real? Nobody knows. There's we've seen pictures of apparent motherboards of this thing. We've seen renders based on CAD files. We had an accessory maker come out and say, "Oh, I definitely have a Switch 2 that I bought on the black market," and then a week later say, "No, I never even saw one." So that was funny. There's just so much. So the biggest leaks that people are talking about, well, apparent leaks again, not confirmed. Let's just call them leaks. So, the biggest leaks that people are talking about at the moment is the SD card situation and the mouse con theory, as people have been calling it. So the SD card situation, apparently, according to retailer systems like GameStop system in the US, the Switch 2 will support SD Express cards or micro SD Express cards. So SD Express is an extension of the SD system that instead of using SATA lines uses PCIe lines and NVMe lines. The current cards that are available on the market cap out at 985 megabytes per second. But the spec is capable of going up to like 4,000 megabytes per second, which is like sort of the standard that the PS5 uses as well. Because it's just
I think we can all agree that the Switch 2 is definitely not going to do that.
Yeah. There's basically, I think we're probably going to get 800 megabytes per second at the top end, but that is still 10 times faster than the current SD cards and the current internal storage of the Switch.
Not to mention latency, which is huge. Yeah. SD card latency is garbage, absolutely garbage. So this SD Express latency is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and SD Express, another thing that it does is that built into the spec is power load balancing. So something that happens a lot in SD cards currently is that, in terms of sustained reads, there's performance degradation because it gets hot and, it's just not good. The SD Express spec, because it is running much faster, has to have certain thermal limitations, and it also has load balancing where it has multiple buses through which the data can travel, and then it switches between them when a high data rate is happening. So it basically means that it can run cooler while still providing good performance, and should be able to do that at sustained rates for a really long time. So SD Express, I think, is the best possible scenario for expandable storage on Switch 2. We could talk about the NVMe drives that you can put in a Steam Deck or whatever, but those are really power hungry. That's a 5-watt hit, and we know that Nintendo is going to be working in a very limited power envelope, so those were just never really on the table unless you wanted to play a game for an hour, and that was it. So yeah, SD Express, really good. The problem is that nobody uses SD Express currently. It's just not it's supposed to be for filmmakers and stuff like that. But, nobody's really using the spec because nobody really needs to use the spec right now.
Also, they just use the Oh god, what's it called? The compact flash one. The one
CFast.
that's like, yeah, CFast, like the better one, because that's
Yeah.
like, yeah. Why would they use SD Express?
Yeah. So yeah, there's not really any mass market devices that are taking advantage of SD Express right now. But and that means that the prices are high, and or like it's just not being sold in a particular country like Australia. There are no SD Express vendors in Australia right now, just none.
I
It's
spent a little bit
basically
of time looking yesterday, and there is literally no one. I cannot find a single person selling
like
an
it's
SD Express card.
Even the listings on Amazon are just shipping in from the UK or the US. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So there are two vendors in the US. That's SanDisk and Samsung. Both making SD Express in the UK, in the US, and then only Samsung in the UK. And in Australia, there's nobody, like there's no official distribution of them. That's obviously going to change when the Switch 2 happens. And I think it's going to be a similar situation to micro SD in that like it was quite expensive to begin with, but it very quickly came down in price. And I think the same thing's going to happen with SD Express when it gets widespread adoption through the Switch 2.
and we should at least be thankful for, if true, that Switch 2 is not using proprietary cards like the Vita, because those things never came down in price.
Oh my god.
Well, the other thing that like we discussed in the Vooks Slack is that there's I can't even remember the name of the spec, but like basically it's the spec that the Xbox Series consoles use is like a widespread like standardized spec. They just have like special firmware on their cards that prevent it. And it's like it's basically like compact flash, but you know, more modern. That was a theoretical possibility because they do make cards like that you can just like slot into devices and stuff. And they do like micro and mini versions of those as well. That was a possibility because you would get performance roughly similar to SD Express, and those are on the market and somewhat in use already. But obviously we're going with SD Express. I think the biggest problem that Nintendo is going to face is, you know, communicating SD Express to people, because there's going to be a lot of people with like 1 terabyte SD cards and going to slap it into their Switch 2, and it's not going to work, or it's going to like just run like shit. So
I think they're gonna have to do something similar to what Sony does on PS5, where you plug in an external storage medium and it just runs a test and it lets you know yay or nay if this is gonna run correctly for games, which is super easy enough to do.
Yeah, I think like there's like a difference in like the consumer mindset though, and like buying an NVMe drive, which like is like a PC component. You know, people who are buying that know like what they're buying for the most part.
Yeah, for sure. But also think probably you'll be able to tell if you've inserted an SD Express card. I'd be amazed if it can't tell if it's SD Express compared to SD. Like with an NVMe drive, you just plug in NVMe. It doesn't know anything about the drive, right? That's why it has to run a test. I think if you plug in an SD Express card, this is just an assumption here, but I think it's a pretty good one, that the system will immediately be able to know if it's SD Express or SD.
Yeah, it's got more contacts on the actual physical card itself, so it will be able to immediately tell, just through power draw alone, the second you put it in there, and conductance and stuff. But yeah, I think communicating that and like not having people be angry about that is going to be a challenge for Nintendo. Because SD
card challenge is going to come from JB Hi-Fi's and EB Games, where the people working there don't give a shit, and someone goes, "I need an SD card for my Switch too," so they sell them a generic $30 SD card and it doesn't do shit.
I think the issue, as we just talked about, is just going to be availability. Like even in the countries where it is available, like it isn't really available. Like it's gonna, unless you know, and I'm assuming in the back end people are, you know, ramping up making these, and you know everything's getting ready to go. But even then, like they really need to get this thing out of the gate, like big time.
I mean, Samsung announced their cards 10 months ago, 11 months ago, like April 2024. And I emailed Samsung the other day and said, "Hey, are these available in Australia?" And they said no, and they probably won't be at least till the end of the year. So that's from the Samsung rep. So whether or not that's true, whether or not that'll stay true once Switch 2 is announced, we'll have to wait and see. But
yeah,
I think it's going to catch them off guard a little bit.
I suspect Nintendo will come out with like, you know, shitty little SD cards with like mushrooms and shit on them, right? Like like they did with the Switch one, right? Like
Yeah.
SD Express cards are probably going to be a thing.
They're
Like
5 times the
Nintendo.
price of a normal SD
Five
card.
times the price, but like it's what we're going to have to pay if that's what we want, because nobody else in Australia is going to sell them.
Yeah.
Once we know what,
just
I
import
mean, I'm
one.
just going to import. Yeah. Once we know what the actual spec is and like what it, you know, what kind of speeds we need to look for, because like SD Express is like already a fucking fractured format. Like there are two like profiles for SD Express, and one is like 300 megabytes per second, and another is like 895 megabits per second. So like it is already fractured, and like regular SD, it's like they have just arcane markings that you have to figure out.
Yeah.
So
You mean
I will
Extreme
say
Pro,
all the-
Extreme Pro 1, Pro 2?
All the cards
but
that I've
there's-
seen so far that they're available all been that top end one, they 95
Yeah.
megabytes. So
well, because it's like, what's the point? Like you've already
Yeah.
kind of like, there's a lot of crossover between like SD, because like the top end of SD is like 300 megabytes per second. And it's like, well, you know, if you can get 300 megabytes per second, like, is the extra 50 megabytes per second by going to SD Express, which like requires extra hardware and shit, really worth it? And the answer is no, it's not. So anything that could use the lowest spec SD Express is just using micro SD. As
I just want to point out, like, this isn't a new spec. Like, this spec's been out for like literally like half a decade. Like,
Yeah.
so like realistically, we shouldn't be having like an insane pricing on these. Like, they're going to be obviously more expensive than normal SD cards. Like, SD cards are prolific; they're like everywhere. But it shouldn't be like an insane thing. Like, you're not going to, you know, be buying like a 256 gig card for like $600, something like that. Like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, at the moment, like with the import prices, and like it will probably be roughly the same. Like you're looking at like 512 gigabytes for a couple $100.
Mhm.
Which like isn't as good as like the, you know, SD cards currently, where you can like get a terabyte card for 120, $150 if you shop around a bit. But yeah, I think it will come down eventually as well, as you know, more Switch 2s get sold and all of that. Because that's what we saw with SD as well. Like people were using micro SD cards, but like it wasn't like a widespread thing, right? It's like some people bought them and chucked them into their phone, some people bought them for cameras, but it wasn't like, you know, you needed this. For the most part, everybody was fine not using SD cards. The Switch is where it really, like 150 million people, you know, it brought prices down a lot. And I think we're going to see the same thing once there's actually any device using micro SD Express.
Something else to consider too is that the leaked board from 3-4 weeks ago now is rumored to have had a 256 gigabyte NAND storage on board, which the Switch itself was 64 gig. I think it was like 58 or something, 59 once you took out all the Switch stuff.
It was 32 gig, but the OLED was 64, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm so used to OLED. But either way, so 32 gig for day one Switch. I don't think if the Switch 2 comes with 256 gig out of the gate, it probably won't be a need to have a day one micro SD Express card there. But regardless of, the one thing I want Nintendo to do is to allow us to either just transfer files via the computer of SD card to SD card, because that would be so much easier when we're upgrading cards. But also, if we have two consoles and we take an SD card from one, put in the other, you know, stop going, oh, you can't use this card in this console because it's linked to this
Never
one.
gonna happen.
Yeah,
Never
gonna
gonna happen. It would be nice,
Not a
but
chance.
it's just not gonna happen.
Don't ruin my dreams. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. I'm more curious about the mouse con, as Ollie's called. I haven't heard of it called that way. But that's what I'm more curious about.
Well, before we go into that, speaking about that motherboard leak, one of the things that it showed was a USB-C port on the bottom and a USB-C port on the top, which I think was really interesting. There are plenty of other handheld devices that have that for one reason or another. Like the Lenovo Legion Go and stuff. Like, you know, it's good to have that because it means that like you can put it in tabletop mode and just like chuck a thing into the top or whatever. People are speculating.
Link cable is back, baby.
I mean, theoretically, yeah, right. You could plug a USB-C cable from Switch to Switch and I guess play over that. But yeah, some people are speculating that it's going to be used for accessories that you can plug in, and obviously, if it's in the dock, then you can plug it into that. I think
Game Boy
that's
camera's
less
getting an
likely.
upgrade.
Well, yeah, that's the thing that people are saying is like maybe it could be a camera. I don't really see much of a use case in that, and like the way that my Switch dock is situated at the moment, it would not really do anything for that. But you know, we'll see.
I will say this: if Nintendo make a camera accessory, I mean the Vita had a camera accessory, or the PSP, one of them had a camera accessory as well. But if Nintendo makes a camera accessory for Switch 2, and I'm out and about and I see someone using their Switch 2 to take a goddamn photo in public, I'm throwing that to the ground.
It's definitely going to happen. 100%.
It's no different
People
to when
still
people take out their iPads to take
no, people
photos.
still
of
take
holding an iPad up
3DSs
in
to
the air.
concerts and take photos. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I doubt that Nintendo would go so far backwards that they would release a peripheral for a camera rather than just having one in the hardware, considering that they did like 3 generations of consoles that had cameras in them already. And since camera technology costs almost nothing to incorporate, so
Yeah,
I don't see them releasing a $50 to $200 peripheral for a USB camera.
I can see them
Like,
releasing a
what's the
$50
point?
cable to connect to your phone, to use your phone's camera.
Yeah, maybe well, you could just do that wirelessly as well. Like,
Yeah, but Nintendo would require you to buy the cable, just because it would be an awkward way to do it. So that's why Nintendo would do it that way.
I mean, you can get like webcams that are just like straight USB that like USB-C that like dock into the top of monitors. I have one. So like, yeah, it's whatever. I don't think it's gonna be camera related. There could be like weirdo accessories, but you know, we'll see
I think
how
it's
that goes.
like general. It just simply just so if you have it on a table, you can just charge it. Like
Yeah,
that's just the simplest explanation.
Yeah, like no other company that is making like handhelds has come up with a better use case for that top port than just like you can charge it while it's standing up on a table. Like that is the reason to have it. So yeah, it's probably just going to be for easy charging. So yeah, let's talk about the mouse con theory. On these renders that are based on CAD files that may or may not be real, and also like there's pictures of what are apparently physical Switch Joy-Cons coming out. There is an optical sensor on the inside of the rail of the Joy-Con. Which first of all, like the Joy-Cons are like apparently magnetic and like slot into the side and fun. But yeah, there is an optical sensor much like the one used in a mouse. People are speculating that you'll be able to take it off the console, turn it sideways, and you've got a mouse. Now, I thought this was the most ridiculous theory I'd ever heard. And then I took a Switch Joy-Con and turned it on its side. And it doesn't feel horrible. It's not the best. It is not the best mousing experience that I've ever had. But it didn't feel like unusable. So I think there's like this could be a thing, right? If those like leaks and renders and all that shit are real, I think the MouseCon could be it. It solves a lot of problems. Well, it solves some problems for Nintendo in that like they can have games that use mouse. So like there's a few mouse games on Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 that they can chuck on the Nintendo Switch Online service.
You're telling me they've done this entirely just so they can bring back Mario Paint?
Maybe. But obviously it bodes well for shooter games as well. Nintendo makes their own one in Splatoon, and there's Doom and all of that shit. Call of Duty is coming to the console soon. Gyro is good and works for a lot of people, but it also doesn't work for others. But it also means that one could theoretically emulate whatever is like on a touch screen, right? Like, because you can't really do touch screen with like pointer controls, like waggling a remote. Like, it's just not a great experience, but it's very doable with a mouse. So
I mean, there's a lot of RTS games that people want on consoles, but they just don't work with
well,
the stick.
so that's what I'm saying, right? Is like we're in the era of StarCraft 2 again, with the Switch 2. StarCraft 2, Switch 2, it's just going to happen. They sound similar. But yeah, I think I think it's a good thing. And like, here's the thing: is like, just because the mouse, like if the mousecon is a mousecon, and you can use it as a mouse. That doesn't mean that like that's the only thing you can use as a mouse. It just means that Nintendo can design knowing that every player has a mouse because it'll be built into the console.
It could end up
I
like
fully-
the IR sensor used in 4 or 5 games and
Yeah.
nothing else.
Absolutely could be. But I think I think it's a situation where like if that mousecon is a mousecon, you will be able to like just plug in a regular mouse as well and use that when docked. But
Maybe that's what that top USB port's for.
maybe. I mean you could just plug it into the dock already, but anyway, I fully expect that you would be able to plug in a mouse as well. Angelo, what do you think about all of these leaks and stuff? Because you've been very quiet.
I'm just waiting to talk about the fun leaks, to be honest. Like storage and stuff is not something that gets me going at all. I want to talk more about the fact that people are pretty much set on the idea of Nintendo calling it the Switch 2. Not that it's going to be called anything else. That I don't know. I think it's the most boring name, but probably the most appropriate, unfortunately, to go with. It'll be interesting because there hasn't been a numerical. Oh, that's not true. I was gonna say a numerical console out of Nintendo since the 64, but there was also the 3DS.
Yeah, but they were more just because of the bits. It wasn't Nintendo 64 wasn't the 64th console that they've made.
No, well, the 3DS wasn't the 3 or of the DS line either. Like, yeah.
It kind of was.
It wasn't the 3DS-ness.
Yeah, but like the fact that not the fact, but how the rumors are pointing towards a U-shaped kickstand as well, I think is interesting. That it might not have that flimsy little piece of crap that we originally had, and it might not have the same sort of surface, laptop style or Surface tablet style one that I think the OLED had. Yeah, I mean, like the MouseCon is an interesting idea. I'm not subscribed to it because I feel like touchscreens are just a way better interface for touching, navigating menus and things like that. For games, like control sticks work just fine.
With like the touchscreen thing, I was thinking like if you were going to do Nintendo DS emulation, there are a lot of games that you couldn't do with just like a pointer, right? Like having a mouse would make DS games playable on a docked console. And
I mean,
having
it's still a
like,
touch
pointer
interface though.
controls.
Like I don't understand why a mouse would make that better.
No, he's saying that if it's docked, you can't touch
If
the
it's
screen.
docked, you can't touch the screen.
Yeah, I suppose that could work. You'd still have the issue of having two screens on a giant screen. That's not really an issue, I
Yeah.
guess, but yeah,
Yeah.
possibly. Or otherwise, like they might just have like the pointer control in the motion control of the controller itself. I said control three
Yeah.
times in that sentence, but I mean that's another way to do it. I think it's interesting that the supposed IR sensors in the Joy-Con are used for communication in the device. That it's basically working like a optical port for audio. How like you just got two lasers talking to each other, transmitting data that way. It kind of takes us back to Game Boy Colors, how they had infrared ports at the top, and you do mystery gift in Game Boy and stuff like that. Kind of harkens back to that a little bit. That the Joy-Con might have magnetic contacts rather than flimsy little switches that kind of like break after a year or so, and then your Joy-Con falls out when you drop it. I think all of these are really interesting changes, and I'm interested to see which ones hold true and which ones are completely bullcrap. To be honest, because it's likely
all
that
of them. They're all true.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're all bullcrap. It's likely that they're all just rubbish. Yeah, like this C button as well. Like, it's just another button, right? Like, what does it mean? Like, you can just put any old button on there and map it to something. But I think it's interesting that there's the prospect of a new button on the screen on the control that kind of makes the controller even less symmetrical. And
So the C button, when you press it, turns the right Joy-Con into a C stick from the GameCube physically.
Yeah.
So you can play GameCube games.
Well,
I
this is the thing. Is like
that'd be
people
cool,
have been like speculating about what that C button could stand for. But like traditionally, when Nintendo has assigned a letter to a button, it's related to controls. Right?
Totally.
Like there's the C buttons on the N64, the C stick, when we introduced the Z button on the N64, like all of these things, like whenever there's been a letter, it has been related to actually controlling something. But like, whenever there's been a non-letter, it's been related to like the function of the console. So like we have the home button, the screenshot button, plus and minus are like not necessarily controls, but like functions that games can use. C is interesting as a thing because it's like, well, what could that possibly mean, right? Like, if it's a control button, why is there just one of it, and like, why is it in such a weird place?
So that's what I'm curious about, because the whole thing about the Switch is that like as soon as you buy a Switch console, you immediately have two controllers, right? Because you can just hand the other Joy-Con off to a friend and you can both play Mario Kart and something. But if that C button is actually like a control function in a game or something, then one person misses out on that button. So what does that mean? Like maybe it's a system level button of some sort or something. Who knows? Maybe it's just an eShop button. I don't know.
It could be for C for camera, for that camera accessory.
Could be C for call the lawyers when someone's like broken copyright law.
It could be a connect button. C for connect, some type of connection thing.
Yeah,
I thought Connect had to be spelled with a K. That's what Microsoft kept telling me.
I mean, like, this is the thing, right? Is that, like, there are so many possibilities, and like, even because like people are saying like, let's assume all these leaks are real, right? People are saying everything's been shown off. There's nothing left to know. And it's like that is just not true. There's like, we know so little about, like, even if every single leak is true, what we know is it's a larger Switch that might be able to be used as a mouse. That's it. Like, that's the extent of what we know.
I think the interesting stuff is that, like, I think everything we've seen so far is just, and I don't mean to diminish what the Switch 2 will be, but it's just the natural iterative process of Nintendo getting better, right? Like, the Joy-Cons have improved because they're magnets. They now communicate to the console using optics, right? There's SD Express. Like, all that type of stuff is just like, it's just making the Switch better, which is fantastic. Like, for me, like a hardware like guy that wants things to be better, like, this is awesome, right? But the stuff, like Angelo was saying, like the C button on the controller, that's the stuff that interests me, because like, what is this magical C button gonna actually do? Like, what does it mean? Like, that's the stuff that's gonna be really cool whenever they announce the Switch. And if there's any other random bullshit in there as well.
I think that kind of piques my interest a little more, because it's like a function that's on the face of the console that we don't know about, because it's obviously going to affect software in some way, right? Because it's going to be a control. So it's like, what kind of other functionalities are there going to be in terms of software and the way the system might work, or online connectivity or something like that? Like, we don't even know, despite all this surface level stuff, like, how it looks, blah, 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 where buttons are and things, we don't even know what kind of screen it's going to have yet. We don't know if it's going to be an LCD panel again. And I'm probably betting it's going to be.
It's definitely going to be out. Like, as much as I want it to be an OLED, I would do horrible things for an OLED, but it's going to be an LCD.
Yeah,
I will, like, gladly, I think I've said this before, I will gladly accept an LCD if it has VRR.
Oh, I think it'll definitely have VRR.
Right? Like,
just from, I think, a performance, like, place, having VRR is definitely a good idea.
I think up to like 90 FPS is possible, or 90 hertz or whatever. I think that's definitely possible, because I mentioned before we recorded the podcast that like so many phones now have 90 hertz as a baseline now. Like, that's almost like the new standard for mobile screens. And I feel like Nintendo, to their credit, does keep up somewhat when it comes to mobile standards for hardware. And I think they just got right out the gate when Breath of the Wild came out and people went to Kokiri Forest and the game was hitting like 6 FPS and things like that, like right off the bat, beginning of 2017. The console comes out and already we're seeing the limits of this hardware. I think that's kind of like egg on Nintendo's face at that point. And I don't really think that they want to sort of go into a new generation with, against the Xbox Series and the PS5, which are already like, pretty powerful hardware as it is at the moment, not even referring to necessarily like the pro versions that might or have already come. I think Nintendo still wants to be relatively competitive in a mobile space if their next handheld is going to last another 8 years, like this one has. Like, we could be looking until 2033 for a new hardware, from Nintendo. So
Yeah.
I think they want it to be a little more longer lasting, and 90 hertz, 120 hertz screens have been around for like 4 or 5 years at this point.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah.
there's definitely ways
think-
Nintendo can future-proof themselves with Switch 2. I personally, for names, I always thought Super Switch.
Yeah, man,
from
I
Nintendo to
really
Super
want that
Nintendo.
so bad.
Yeah.
I really want it to be called
Nah,
that.
as I
so
said,
bad.
nobody in Japan is going to release a console that has the abbreviation SS. Never gonna happen.
Yeah.
100%, 0% chance that it's gonna happen.
And unfortunately, they can't call it Super Nintendo Switch because SNS is what they use for social media. So,
Yeah, it's just it's never gonna happen.
I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's
I-
going to call it the SS though. I think they would just call it the Super Switch.
People
I think
will
there's a
100%
certain
call it
subset of people that would definitely
I
call the
guess.
SS.
Yeah, okay.
my personal
Yeah,
thing
no.
though is I think Nintendo has to future-proof themselves a little bit, just because again, as Angelo said, like there's sort of now a baseline standard for mobile devices, so there's an expectation of a certain level of quality from a mobile device, and for better or worse, all these other PC handhelds that have come out, Steam Deck, Lenovo Edge, MSI Claw, Acer, whatever the hell their one's called, all these ones that have come out.
It's
now-
just a small deer right down that cheek.
To be fair, CES has just wrapped up for the year, and I've gone through so many press releases where they had the Asus and Acer and MSI and all these different model names. There's the Zephyrus Zog 17 and Zephyrus Zog and all that. So there's so many things that my brain just can't keep up. My point is because there's now these other PC handhelds that are around, there's sort of a now set level of expectation there also. Not that they've like penetrated the market in big ways, but there's sort of this like extra little bucket that Nintendo have to be aware of. So I think when you consider mobile phones, you can consider them, and you consider where tech is going. I mean, at CES there was a screen that was actually bulging. It would bulge with the image. I don't know why anyone wants a screen that would bulge. I don't want
Love
my
a good
I
bulge.
don't want to be playing like Resident Evil on my Switch, and all of a sudden the screen leaps out of my face like a face hugger from
Okay,
Aliens.
but I imagine the people who play games with jiggle physics will really enjoy. Like, imagine Dead or Alive,
Good God.
on a screen that bulges. People are going to
Thankfully,
go nuts for that.
I don't think the screen can jiggle or bulge
I mean,
quite that quickly.
At that point, just go back to 3D screens. Like,
Yeah.
get so much more fidelity out of that.
I think,
but
also just to temper expectations a bit, like we are still talking about Nintendo. Like Nintendo lives in its own bubble, right? Like as much as we want them to do all these amazing things, and this makes sense because XYZ competitor has done it, and it's the standard right now. Nintendo has very much shown that it doesn't give a flying fuck about what other people are doing,
But that
and it will
said,
just do its own thing.
but they will take in the technology and use newer, I'd say that with the utmost sarcasm, technologies, provided that it still makes the console itself profitable and it's proven technology as well. Right?
sure.
The most forward-thinking thing that they've done in the last 20 years, the two most forward-thinking things that they've done were accelerometers in a controller, so motion control, and 3D screens. Those are the two most forward-thinking things that they had done. Like no one else had ever done anything like that before in like mass market consumer technologies. And one was super successful, which was the Wii, obviously, and the other one was really successful, but not necessarily because of the 3D. And then they ended up taking it out in further iterations of the console. So I think they definitely can be the ones who sort of like put their best foot forward, but provided that it's cheap enough and it is a good enough like justification for what they're trying to achieve with the new console.
I think the biggest barrier to having a high refresh rate screen is that most people do not give a fuck or even realize that something is running higher than 30 frames a second, right? It's like most people can feel the difference between 30 and 60 FPS, but like once you get to 60 FPS beyond that,
My
most people
counter argument to that is imagine a new F-Zero at 90 FPS.
okay, but like if you
Imagine your eyeballs
Why-
bleeding from
why-
that.
Why would you put that out into the world?
if you take the average person off the screen and put a Switch 2 in front of them and say, is this running at 60 FPS or 90 FPS, they will not know, or they will get it wrong every single time. Like it's just something that people don't care about. Nobody, like the only people that care about anything above 60 frames a second. The only people who have heard the term frames per second are like people like us that are like enthusiasts and like deep into it, and like we care about that shit, right?
You know what?
The person
Ollie's
fucking
baiting
buying
me into
Pokemon
another
Scarlet
argument, and I am not going to fall for it. So
it's not
you
an
go
argument.
off,
It's
and
just
I'm not
like
gonna
it's.
I'm not going to.
I will raise a counterpoint to you, Ollie. Nintendo Labo VR 2.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh, there we go, boys.
So I think Look, I think
I just don't give a fuck.
The wild card.
I agree mostly with what Ollie's saying, right? I think the vast majority of people don't, but I think that mindset is definitely changing. Like PS5 and Xbox Series consoles that both do 120 now, and I think 120 hertz gameplay is definitely getting into the at least competitive gaming zeitgeist when it comes to stuff like COD and all that type of junk. Do I think that they're going to have a 90 hertz display on the Switch too? I would say probably not. I think just from a power draw handheld mode situation, right? I think that's just not worth it for them. You know what I mean? Like the vast majority of games are probably not going to ever run at 90 hertz. So why even bother having a 90 hertz screen?
I know,
and they're just going to have it as 60 in VRR.
But
maybe that's what the dock does.
But then there's so much
God.
evidence of so many consumer technologies nowadays that do have at least 90 hertz screens. Like almost every phone has at least 90 hertz.
So I
But
think
you've got
there's a
VR.
difference between like the screen that Nintendo Switch uses probably will support 90 hertz, but are they going to actually enable it? Probably not.
Who knows? But
Yeah.
my point still stands though. You've got it in VR headsets, you've got it in phones, you've got it in televisions, you've got it in monitors. Like it's almost everywhere now, right? Like unless you're specifically making a device to be as cheap as possible, like you're probably going to use a 90 hertz screen. So I would probably bet higher that the screen itself, the console itself, will be capable of 90 hertz gaming over something like an OLED screen in the console at this point.
I think it'll be 60 with VRR. I hope it's 60 with VRR. More higher with VRR would be great too. I just imagine
that playing something like a
unlikely.
racing game, like even Mario Kart, would benefit from like 90 FPS or something like that. Like imagine doing like a 300cc mode or something.
Like,
It'd be so
I
much more
100%
fun.
agree with you. Like it would be incredible. I would just be, that is my like, I would be over the moon and amazed if Nintendo does that. Like that would be like a next level thing.
I just don't think it's out of the realm
mean-
of possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just say it's entirely possible, just like anything else that's been rumored so far.
I think the thing is, right, like I have, like what Michael was saying, like the power draw thing is like a very real consideration, right? I have a Lenovo Legion Go, and that has a 120 or 144 hertz. So I think it's a 144 hertz screen. And do you know how many times I've had any game run at 144 frames a second? It's none. It's zero. It's never happened. And this is like pushing it to like 35 watts, which is like the most power it can draw. And it's still like it's not enough power to get the vast majority. Like I think I could maybe get Hollow Knight there if I tried, and like that's it. There's like no racing game is going to be running that high, and that's at 800p. So I just don't feel like something at 1080p is like on the Switch, which is already going to be like more power constrained than those devices, is really going to happen.
I think I've said it. I've said it in the previous years, almost every year since we've been talking about like new hardware. All I want from Switch 2 is for games to run well at the resolution that they are targeting for.
Yep.
Right? Like that's it. Like that's the lowest bar I can possibly set. If you're aiming for 1080p on that screen, I want games to run at 1080p and I want them to run well at 1080p. That's all I want.
Anyway, I just want to say quickly before we move on, to the people that are saying that we've seen everything now, if you had seen a 3DS, like pictures of a 3DS without like the screen on or without any of the like the branding on it prior to the launch of the 3DS, you would think this is just a larger DS, and obviously that's not what it was. So consider that Nintendo is, you know, it knows what it's doing. Well,
The people who say they've seen everything, this is like saying, oh, I know the two teams that are playing in the final of my favorite sport, so I know how it's going to go. It's like, well, no. There's so much more that goes into it than just knowing the team names. So, yeah, Nintendo have always surprised us, right? Even when we thought we knew what Switch was going to be, we didn't know what Switch was going to be. So, yeah, be
Well,
ready
again,
for surprises is all I can say.
all we've seen is just the surface level stuff, all the stuff that's on the outside of the console. It's everything that runs the console that's going to make it, successful. The fact that it has a C button on it isn't going to make it sell 10 million consoles on day one, right?
My theory for that, by the way, because I didn't say it before, is you press it and Mario's voice will just pop out of a speaker in the Switch too, and it'll just go, "Cool, dude," and that's it. That's all it does.
Oh my god.
I would pay $700 for that console. Alrighty. So into our feature discussion, even though that last one may as well have been a feature discussion. We made a bunch of predictions last year, and most of them didn't come true. A lot of them we can't really know about, but basically everything we predicted did not happen. So Luke, do you want to take us through all of it? Or, let's just go over it. Like, Luke, tell me what you predicted and what you got right.
So as always, for those who don't know, we do 3 real predictions, like things we think would actually happen, and then 1 bullshit prediction where, it could happen, but it's like a snowball's chance in hell sort of thing. My 3 real predictions were Kirby and the Forgotten Land 2 would be announced. That did not happen. A new Fire Emblem game with no toothpaste hair would be announced. That did not happen. Xenoblade Chronicles X Deluxe would be coming to Switch. That did happen. And then my bullshit was the Star Wars Jedi series launching day 1 on Switch 2. We don't know because there's no Switch 2 announced yet. So that could happen. So,
I also just want to point out that so many of our predictions were geared on Switch 2 releasing last year, which didn't happen.
Well,
really.
Again, according to rumors, it was intended supposedly to come out last year, and then they held off for stock reasons.
Yeah. So out of the 3 good ones and the 1 bad one, or the 1 bullshit one, I got 1 correct. So,
yeah. Angelo, what were your predictions last year?
Mine was, first up, Nintendo will increase the cost of Nintendo Switch Online shortly after the new system releases. Now, Luke marked this as a cross, but this is also another question mark one, because we haven't got the new console. But in terms of last year, it was wrong. An announcement for a new 3D Mario Adventure spiritual successor to Odyssey. That was incorrect. Presuming the Switch 2 has a dock, that dock will increase graphical power to the system when hooked up to a TV for 4K gaming. Again, another question mark one. We don't know anything about the Switch 2. This is locked in. And my BS one was a Nintendo published game will be embroiled in an AI scandal. Now, could this technically be true given that there is so much AI slop on the eShop?
I mean, if Nintendo published one of those, then yes. If not, then no.
I mean, they own the eShop. It's theirs.
The whole eShop is AI.
You're trying to claw points you haven't earned yet.
I'm happy to take the L.
Woolworths are responsible for what Coke put in their cans of soft drink because they sell them in their supermarket.
I mean, they do the recall though, so.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm throwing it out there to the judges. That's up to you guys.
I will give you a 1/100th of a point for that, so you can get.
Okay, and that's 1/100th more than I'd have otherwise.
All right, Michael, talk us through your predictions.
I just said Metroid Prime 4. I don't know why you should have said that. Just like zero context. Which I guess technically we saw a lot more of it this year.
We saw it for one.
If you put the word reveal there, that would be a point. But
that would have been a reveal.
I mean, you did say Metroid Prime 4. It did get revealed, so I mean, I would give you the point personally.
I'll take 1/100th of a point. I did put in brackets Switch 2 launch ? Now I'm like, that's definitely going to happen. I feel like let's find out. I
that's
also
like
put
the
down
most cross-gen title I've ever seen.
100%. Mario Kart 9 / Mario Kart Ultimate didn't happen, but I also wrote this one. I might actually launch with Switch 2, which again I'm going to go with. Yeah, that's. Might happen as well. I guess we'll see. And of course, my perennial classic, Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess Remaster, this year again, didn't happen. And Switch 2 launches, and no one will be disappointed by Nintendo's choices. Which, again, let's wait and see, because that's gonna be a slam dunk, I think.
Alrighty. So my predictions were that there would be a new Golden Sun game announced. Did not happen, which is a bummer. I also said that a new Final Fantasy spin-off / ground up remake comes to Switch. That also did not happen. Final Fantasy is in a bad place right now, so we'll see how it goes. And
exclusively locked to PlayStation. Yeah, that explains
yeah,
why it's in a bad
and
place.
selling poorly. Yeah, and then a new Pokemon Let's Go game, which did not happen. But I was kind of glad to be wrong about that because ultimately we got a new Legends game announced, which was exciting. Still not
And that's
out.
the thing. If you hadn't just said "Let's go," if you just said a new Pokemon game announced, you would have gotten a point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a new
Yeah.
Pokemon game announced every year. I'm not gonna like.
I feel like all of us have been fucked by either being too specific or not specific enough.
And my BS one was also that there would be 2 screens on the Switch too, which doesn't look like it's gonna happen, but I still believe. I'm still willing to gain points for that.
It could be like that PSP Go, the one that had the screen down and you would slide it up to access the buttons.
I mean, maybe
could be
that's
like
maybe that's what that second USB-C port's for.
Yeah.
Now, all
Monitor.
right, if right, if
Here
the
we go.
C button
Yeah.
lets me cast my console to my TV and then use it as like a 3DS or Wii U or whatever, or DS emulator, and there's the screen on my Switch and the screen on my TV, does that count as a Switch 2 with 2 screens?
I would say no, just because
Yeah.
not every TV has that functionality built in.
Okay, but
Hmm.
would you? Okay, let's say there's like a fucking dongle or whatever that Nintendo sells, or it's just like built into the dock. You know, does that count, right? Because nobody would say that the Wii U doesn't have a second screen.
Okay, so if the functionality is there, and the whole point is that it would broadcast, it would split your game onto 2 separate screens, then technically I would say yes, you'd be correct in it saying 2 screens.
Okay, I'm still.
So I would give it to you if it's a cast button and it wildly casts to the dock, right? If it is
or a
just
dongle that you can buy at a
sure,
nominal cost.
whatever, yeah, that's fine. Or whatever pre-built casting stuff exists out there, that's also okay. But if it does that and it's just mirroring what's on the screen, I'm going to go with no. If it's a cast button and it's specifically designed to give you like a second display experience, like your main stuff is on the TV and then you have like a Wii U style second screen experience, I'll give it to you. I'll actually award you two points because I feel like that's a wild prediction.
All right. So yeah, Vooks did our official predictions. You know, it's you can read the article, it'll be in the show notes. Because we are running out of time. So we'll go over our predictions for this year. So I'm gonna start. I think the Nintendo Switch Online, especially on Switch 2, is going to get a new console that is not the GameCube. Now, I've talked about this before, earlier in the episode. I think something like DS, maybe 3DS, definitely not Wii U, but DS or 3DS, I think are possible. I don't think it's going to be GameCube. I think Nintendo sees too much value in GameCube games that can be like up-resed and sold at a premium that they would never just chuck them
If
on us.
Nintendo want to sell us GameCube games on carts that we just put in our Switch or Switch 2 consoles and we play them, enjoy them that way, as long as they're not more than $30, I'd be okay with that. Because there are some GameCube
already
games
doing it.
No, I'm not talking about HD ports and remasters and remakes. I'm talking about just like literally slapping the ROM on a cartridge. I'll be okay with that.
Why would they do that when they can up-res it to 1080p and then sell it to you for $60 instead?
He's not saying they're going to do that.
Right?
He's saying he would be happy if they did do that.
Yeah,
I think one of the biggest
if, like Nintendo gave me a free Switch 2, it's never gonna happen.
I think one of the biggest roadblocks with GameCube games on Switch or Switch 2 even, actually we don't know about Switch 2. Switch definitely. Is no analog triggers and definitely no analog digital click on that trigger either. Like that's not every game uses that. That's you can sort of get away with, but no analog triggers is a big one. Like many games.
Super Mario
use analog triggers.
Sunshine in the 3D All Stars collection, it plays fine, but it's like 98% there.
Yeah.
Well, if Game Pass is ever going to come to Switch 2, that'll be a problem. There's so many
hey.
Xbox games.
Leave some space for me, thank you.
I'm just saying that there are so many Xbox games that do require
I know.
like analog triggers. So
My second prediction is that there is a new Mario Kart that has double dash features. Now, whether this is like, a double dash remastered or, a brand new Mario Kart game that, has the dual kart, like double dash bullshit. I think that's what we're aiming for. I think it's going to happen.
Honestly, I'd love it if the new Mario Kart had double dash mode in there. Like you could play everything double dash or without double dash.
See, I've hedged my bets here. I said has double dash features, which means it could be double dash HD. It could be, a dual kart mode. It could be a double dash mode. It could be anything as long as it has double dash.
If the next
features.
Mario Kart is just Mario Kart Double Dash HD, we have way more problems.
I'd still buy it. My third prediction is the safest prediction in the world, but I need a point. The new Pokemon game, Pokemon Legends ZA, or another Pokemon game, there might be 2 this year, who knows. I'm trying to be safe with my predictions, so I get any amount of points. Is that the new Pokemon game is still super rough, even on Switch 2, it'll still run like shit and look like shit, because it's Pokemon, Game Freak is not great at, their engine sucks, and they need to switch from it. So yeah, Pokemon, looking rough. Could be totally surprised. There are good looking and good running Pokemon games on the Switch, so who knows.
To be fair, we haven't had a new Pokemon game from them, like not accounting DLC or updates, but we haven't had a new Pokemon game since 2022. Yeah. So
it'll be 3 years since the last game. So, it could happen. My BS, which I don't think is like that far-fetched, but maybe it is. Both Sony and Microsoft show up in the Switch 2 announcement trailer / the info blowout. We don't know if they're going to do like this is a console, and then like have a big blowout afterwards. I think, whichever one, like in the initial like pre-release marketing, both Sony and Microsoft show games for the Switch 2. That's my BS prediction. That I feel reasonably confident about, but who knows what Sony's doing.
Just to put a caveat around that, Ollie's not talking about MLB The Show 25.
Yeah, no. And like none of the stuff that's like fucking Aniplex, which is like a Sony company either. Like I'm talking about like PlayStation Studios and Xbox Game Studios.
Horizon Forbidden West.
Well, maybe not quite that level. Helldivers 2, something like that.
That's what you're talking about. You're talking about like a game like that sort of tier.
Yeah.
Where Ghost of Tsushima is announced, but it's Ghost of Tsushima, and it's part of the Switch 2 launch.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But you remember when they did that with Skyrim, they put the Master Sword and that in there. I could just see Ghost of Tsushima ending up with like a Legend of Zelda costume. So you can run around feudal Japan, everything's muddy and dirty, and then you've got Link in a bright green tunic running through.
Tsushima's getting massacred, Mario's just in the background going, whoa!
And the reason I think this is going to happen is like, I feel like Sony is petty enough to bring a game to Nintendo solely to like show Xbox that it's not bringing games to Xbox. I think that's the kind of petty that Sony is at the moment, and
Yeah.
I mean, is it petty or is it just retaliation when Mario and Microsoft are sharing games? Like, it's just mum and dad fighting over Nintendo at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they'll both make an appearance, and I think that will be really funny.
Yeah, it'd be great.
The fact that we got 2 PlayStation games on Switch last year still blows my mind.
Michael, tell me about your predictions.
Yes, I'm not confident about really any of my predictions. These are all like just basically bullshit. But my first one is that we'll see a new Animal Crossing game release in 2025, which may happen, I think.
Yep.
I think it's been big enough for Nintendo that they're obviously definitely working on one. I just don't know if it will necessarily launch this year. But I think if it launched with Switch 2 or around Switch 2 launch date, that would be... Switch 2 is already going to be huge, but it's going to be like extra huge.
Be huge.
I feel like it could
within
be
a year. Within a year of Switch.
Killer holiday title. Like if that launched in like October, that would be so big.
To give you some context, Michael, I've said this years past, but I do a whole deep dive on various publishers, and in Nintendo, the Monolith team in Kyoto generally support the Animal Crossing team. They've had open for a few months now a bunch of jobs specifically with Animal Crossing called out in them. So there is definitely new Animal Crossing coming. So your prediction
Not in
may not be as
2025.
crazy. May not be as crazy as you wanted to think.
If Nintendo gets Bill Gates on the horn and gets him to release a new pandemic, like it's a surefire thing.
I mean, 5G is really out there all the time now, so
Yeah,
it's ready to go.
that's it.
Next one is, oh man, I don't know if even the Switch 2 has enough power for this one, but I'm going to put it out there. Baldur's Gate 3 will be announced for Switch 2, which I think would be wild. And it's definitely going to add to the lineup of impossible ports that the Switch has gotten. That'll be cool. I think that would, if that comes out, that will sell gangbusters. But again, I don't know how you do a physical release of that, because that game's like the size of like 20,000 Switch games.
It comes with its own special
so-
micro SD express card.
Yeah, it might just be like maybe digital only. I've got no idea.
To be fair, that studio, Larian Studios, did bring. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but they did bring a game to Switch.
Divinity.
Divinity
That's it.
Original Sin 2.
I was going to say Pillars of Eternity, but that's the Obsidian one. But yeah, so Divinity Original Sin 2. And they were the first studio ever to let you bring your Steam save to Switch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Precedent has
they've
been
done some
set.
stuff for Nintendo, so it's not out
Having
of the
said
realm of
that,
possibility.
Baldur's Gate 3 is like real intensive on the CPU, and that's like
That's what I mean. I'm just like, I don't even know if Switch 2 could do it, but like, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. Give us a third prediction, Michael.
Oh, who would have thought that this third prediction would be coming up? That Zelda Wind Waker and Twilight Princess Remaster will be coming out this year. Again. It's
Honestly,
gonna
I
happen.
feel like this is more of a BS guess than it is.
Okay,
never gonna
if
happen.
it doesn't come out this year, it's never coming.
Doesn't
I
come
feel
out
like-
in 2025,
I
but
could
it comes out January 1st, 2026.
Yeah, just to spite me. I could see it being a 2026 release though.
Oh man, 2026 is wild. I feel like this is an easy filler titles for Switch while people work on Switch 2 games.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean?
I feel like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom could be like they could get their own revivals this year on Switch 2
With like a
locked 30
remastered,
FPS.
remastered quote unquote.
Yeah, something like that, or like just a patch or whatever, and then these two come out. I could see that being a thing.
That's a
But-
good discussion point, actually. If we think
but-
that Nintendo's going to do re-releases for Switch titles, or just do drop patches for
Stop
games.
stealing my things.
Oh, was that in there? Sorry, I didn't read that. Oh wait, it is there.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna say something, Angelo?
No, I was just gonna say
Okay.
you boo. Like I'm not gonna hold you down.
Okay. And my really BS one. This will be wild if this happens. But again, this goes to the same vein as Ollie was saying. This is like a fuck you to Sony from Microsoft if they bring Game Pass to Switch, which would just be bonkers.
Now, do you mean like Game Pass, where like, you know, there's a selection of games that you get included in Game Pass, or like Game Pass like via cloud streaming?
both?
Both.
Yeah,
Both.
game streaming.
Both. Why not
Game
just say
streaming-
either, man? Give yourself the points.
Just installing Indiana
Both.
Jones on the Switch too.
All right,
Yay.
let's go either just for points wise. But streaming is a slam dunk. That's super easy. The Switch 2 will definitely have enough like power, and hopefully the connectivity around like Wi-Fi and stuff is really good, so it can do it properly. Thank you. But it would be wild if they somehow pulled off they start releasing some like back catalog and it's just somehow free if you have Game Pass on the store.
Look, if,
I mean, I
if
could-
Game Pass comes to it and they bring Viva Pinata to Switch, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could see them doing like a deal with Rare and being like, here's like the Rare Replay collection, you know, for everyone to get, etc., etc. And then like, you know, a new Star Fox Adventures shows up. Holy crap! Like, you know, that'd be amazing.
Either way, I feel like pretty much all of mine are not going to happen. But let's see how we go.
Never say
I
never.
believe. Angelo, give us your
All right.
predictions.
So mine's a bit of a lame one at first up. So Switch 2 retails at around $600 AUD at launch. I feel like that's probably a
I like that we all
decent-
just nodded along. Like, yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's an unfortunately sensible level of inflation for a new console. I feel like.
I
that
reckon it
Nintendo
might be
can
even
money.
more.
Yeah,
Eventually.
I'm thinking 650 at minimum.
Yeah.
Mostly because the Red Lid launched at 550.
I would say
Well-
because Angelo hedged his bets and put around here, I would say 10% either side. So $60 less or $60 more gives you the
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
So the reason why I put it at 600 is because I could see a price drop coming for the OG Switch down to like 350 or something. They usually get sold for like 400 anyways, but I could see it like retailing at about 350 and then this slotting up just that little bit higher.
Yeah.
But then you know, when the inevitable OLED version comes out in 2 years, that'll go up to like 650, 700.
See that.
My second one is in the same vein or a similar vein to Horizon Forbidden West coming to Switch via a Lego version. We'll get an announcement for Lego God of War announced for Switch 2 sometime. Switch or Switch 2. Could see.
I think that would legit be a great Lego title.
I think that would be kind of fun. Yeah, I was trying to think of something else offhand
Which
that
God
might
of War
work.
though?
Well, I was thinking
Because
either like a Ratchet and Clank could work or something like that, but I don't know. I feel like God of War is sort of in a similar vein to like being that kind
And
of
you mean like
middle-
OG God of War, right? Like the first God of War. With
Like the
like
Greek
no,
God of
no.
Wars or the more recent
sorry,
ones?
I mean the Nordic newer ones.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Like the other one would be wild as a Lego game.
yeah.
so
it's
many
just-
red bricks.
Well, I was gonna say just Kratos just banging some ladies off screen again in Lego form. Third prediction is that Switch 2's UI will suck ass again. Much like the original Switch, it'll just be some plain old boring.
I want this to not be true, but I feel like this is your slam dunk.
I need
Well,
a win.
I have an issue with this one
Again,
because
of
it's
course.
entirely subjective, right? Right. I think the first Switch's UI is fantastic. I think it is smart and snappy and does exactly what it needs to do to get me into a game and nothing more. And that's what I like in a UI compared to like the PS5 and the Xbox that like are just absolute fucking nightmares. So I think it's great. If it's, I will give you like, if you absolutely hate it and genuinely hate it and not just playing it up to get the point, it will be very obvious because you're very outspoken about things. We all are. So I think it's entirely subjective, but like fair, you know.
Well, see, mine's also a twofer because if like the UI is just like clunky, then sure I get the point. But also, if the Switch 2 on stage comes out and sexually harasses Shigeru Miyamoto, then I also get the point. So
So
there we go.
I would actually love. Oh no! So this is the weird part, right? Because my biggest problem with, well, not my biggest. I have a lot of problems with a lot of things, but like one of the big things that I hate about new consoles coming out is that they always seem to reset the UI. Like it's always like starting again from fresh for some reason, right? So all the functionality that we've got on the previous ones, you know, that has been developed over many years, just goes in the bin for some reason. This didn't happen with Xbox this release, which is great because they just used the same UI and then iterated on it for both consoles, which is great. It was awesome. It happened with PlayStation
to get up to bloody on Xbox 360 to get up to the one we have now. So
totally. It happened on PlayStation 5, but again, they're starting to add a lot more of that functionality back now, which is good. But I'm hoping that like this is now the cycle is breaking. Like as consoles come out in the future, like it's just like getting the same OS on the previous system just moves over. But that also means that we just have the Switch UI, which maybe that'll be the Switch UI, but it'll just be improved more. I guess we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll have to
on the
check
whole
back
of
in
that.
once it comes out.
And my fourth prediction, which is an absolute slam dunk again, is that Super Nintendo Land will get a theme park site announced for Australia, most likely to be in Mildura.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're all on board on this one.
Yeah.
I got Doug Bowser on the phone yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, man, we'll do it. We're bringing it to Mildura. That's no problem."
the closest location when it happens, if it still happens, would be in Singapore, because they said they were going to put one in Singapore, but the Singapore Universal Park has no space. They built it on an already existing island, and it's had no room when they built the theme park in the first place. Now, some 10 years later, it still has no room.
Well, see,
so
we
who
have plenty
knows?
of room in Australia, particularly right next to Mildura. So,
Well, there's nothing else in Mildura.
Yeah.
Mildura
Mildura is the only place in Australia that has space left. Everywhere else is full.
I mean, I couldn't imagine it going up with any other theme park. They wouldn't want to, you know, mix things up there. But yeah, it would be cool if we had one of those, just because it'd be like, you'd be able to go, just, you know, pop in, eat some food, eat that weird Donkey Kong hot dog with the cheese sauce and the two buns at this one bun thing.
get confused at a giant pile of bananas. All right, Luke.
Alrighty, Luke, give us your predictions.
My first prediction is that Nintendo will give a Switch game the deluxe release treatment on Switch 2. So much like we've seen with the Wii U getting deluxe games on Switch, like Xenoblade Chronicles, X, and all that sort of stuff. I think we'll see some of that. It's stupidly easy for Nintendo. I mean, they didn't even do this one themselves for Donkey Kong. They farmed it out to Forever Entertainment, so they did, clearly not worried about it. My second prediction is that Hi-Fi Rush will come to Switch 2, and then that will lead the charge for other Bethesda games like Starfield, Doom, Dark Ages, and Indiana Jones.
This feels like a freebie to me, but I mean, like Hi-Fi Rush is definitely going to come. Like, there's
Look, my whole thing with Doom, especially, is because we got all the other Dooms on Switch, and Panic Button have been really, really quiet for the past few years. Like they ported Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, but they didn't do the last gen downgrades for Jedi Survivor. That was done by Respawn themselves. So the studio has been sitting on work that they've not been talking about, and given they worked really closely with id Software, that's why I'm thinking that could be a reason why.
Here's my thing about Hi-Fi Rush, right? Is like it's not owned by Microsoft anymore, so I don't see it as a floodgate for other Bethesda games. I feel like Hi-Fi Rush is now a separate thing that Crafton will do something with, and then Bethesda is now its own thing as well.
Are you sure it's not owned by them? I thought they still retain the rights.
No, they're still the publisher for the first game, but like the IP is owned by Tango itself under the Crafton banner.
According to the Crafton press release, it says the publishing rights to the original game, as well as Tango's prior titles, remain with Microsoft and Bethesda.
Yeah, so they own it as the publisher, right? But any new version isn't under that existing publishing deal. So if a Switch game,
but that's what I mean. So is Hi-Fi Rush, even if it's ported to a different platform, is that considered the original game just on more hardware, or is it considered a new version? That's what I'm like a bit iffy.
Well, it's kind of like Death Stranding, right? Where like 505 Games took over the publishing for non-Sony versions of the game.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I'll give it to you. Like if Hi-Fi Rush comes, and like sure, if like other Bethesda game come too, then like yeah, sure, you get another point.
Look, given how much Bethesda loves Switch, it just sort of makes sense to me that they'd bring some of their games. And when I said a charge of other games, I'm also thinking some of the older ones would come across. Just because I think for them alone, it would be easy to release some of their older games on other platforms. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Right.
My third prediction is that Switch Online will get a September update that adds GameCube titles to it, but you need to pay extra for this third new tier. Because that's what I think Nintendo would do.
I love that you are sticking with September here.
It's like the anniversary. It just sort of makes sense. I don't think they'd do it like at launch of Switch 2 unless Switch 2 launches in September. Just because I don't think they would want to,
if it comes October, you're getting 0 points. Just FYI.
Or August, 0 points.
12:01 a.m. on September 1st to 11:59:59 on September 30th. And my bullshit prediction is Call of Duty comes back to Switch, but it's with a heap of old titles. So not all the new stuff, but all the stuff that's already been out. So the Modern Warfare reboot, the other Black Ops games, Advanced Warfare, World War II, all those ones that have already been released on Xbox and PlayStation for the past decade and change, we'll start getting those on Switch. That's what we'll get first, and then eventually we'll get the newer ones.
So the fun thing about this, I really like this as a prediction because I do think it's likely to happen, but it also could theoretically give both me and Michael our BS points as well. Because it could be a part of Game Pass, and it could be in the Switch 2 announcement trailer. So, we could all get a point on our BS if just, Microsoft does this one thing. Yeah. So yeah, we will check back in a year to see. I mean, we'll probably mention it throughout the year if we do get them right. it realistically, like in a week, half of these could be resolved. We'll see how it goes.
I'm sad that this whole episode no one's mentioned snipper clips at all.
Yeah,
Oh, the
snipper
game
clips.
rules.
Oh,
does
RIP.
rule.
I'd love a snipper clips too.
Yeah,
Maybe that'll be a
like,
launch title.
I
hope
would
so.
not be surprised if like Nintendo has partnered with another indie for a launch title.
Like, what are those guys doing? The ones who did snipper clips.
They just released Crow Country. Crow County?
Oh, was that them? Okay.
Yep, SFB games.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Nintendo partnering with another indie for a launch title. Totally see it happening. Yeah. And yeah,
so
I'm really
in
looking forward to
2024,
Silksong.
Nintendo did buy Shiver Entertainment, and the whole point for them was that they'd be porting things. So
They bought what?
Shiver Entertainment. They're the
I
people
thought you
that
said
ported.
Sheeran, and I was like, that did not happen.
No. So Fast Racing Neo and The Tourist is Shirin, and they're still Shinrin, and they're still They're independent.
Like,
Yeah, no,
I really want your first prediction to be wrong, just because I really would just love just some nice, easy download and update. And I'm not saying that the games have to be remastered. Just like download an update and your game just runs at a higher, maybe high res and a higher frame rate.
And that's
on Switch
why
too.
I've said they'll do the deluxe version, because Nintendo has never, ever, ever
I
done
know
the easy thing.
they
And
haven't.
the best
and it's just
example
like,
of that is Wii to Wii U for their Virtual Console. You had to pay extra to get the same game you already owned on the new hardware.
for sure, but I feel like
Well, I
that's
mean, yes,
definitely
I mean,
dead now. Like that's
No,
not
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
gone.
Nintendo's done that before, where you had to pay extra, and I think it's what they do here. And Ollie just made mention of it earlier when I said, GameCube games on a cart without porting. He's like, no, but Nintendo would not want to do that. They'd want to make sure that they were charging you more because they upscaled it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I guess we'll
That's what's
see.
gonna happen.
Yep.
I'll throw another prediction in. I don't want to get points for this, but I think that Super Mario 3D All Stars, or at least the games in them, will be on Switch too, because it doesn't break their promise of only having it available on Switch for, X amount of time.
I think it was recently available again on Amazon Australia. from
Yeah, they
memory,
just found a whole bunch of like stock sitting in a warehouse.
which is just
probably.
crazy. Like,
Um,
it was
yeah,
the most
I
not
think-
limited release I've ever seen in my life.
I think it'll come
the
to
Zelda Game & Watch.
Oh, that also.
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, the fucking like the Animal Crossing Switch that was like definitely limited, and then 100% was not limited. They did like 4 production runs of that thing.
Yeah, they were still selling that a year later.
There we go. That's my second
Oh, like-
BS prediction. Is that Switch 2 vent doubles as a smell-o-vision? Remember how everyone was always sniffing their vents when the Switch came
Yeah.
out? There we go.
Alrighty.
And everyone was licking the cartridges.
There's that too. Yeah, taster cart. I don't know.
We're gonna skip over games we're playing because we've been at this for like 2 hours now, so we should get on to 20 questions, which, Luke, it is your turn to have the game,
Yes.
which
I
means
have
we've lost,
the game.
so GG everyone.
Thanks for playing. Come back next week.
Alrighty. Angelo, do you want to give us the first question? You're muted.
You're muted.
So.
Literally just muted myself to type something, and then you asked me that, and I forgot. Yes. Was this game released in the 2010s? Was it initially released in the 2010s?
Initially released in the 2010s? No.
Okay, well, we have our first hint just from that.
Yeah, so it could be like a re-release or a remake.
Or it came out in like Japan in like the 90s and only just came to the West in like 2010 or whatever. There's a few games like that.
Was this game released on or after January 1st, 2000?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So likely 2000 to 2010, but theoretically later as well.
Theoretically, 2000 to 2025.
Yeah. Well, just because like it could be like a Fortnite situation where it was like in early access, but doesn't really count, or whatever, right? Like early access games are a thing. So
Has there ever been an early access game on Switch?
yeah, Fortnite. So like
Was this game released on
15
Wii?
whatever value. Anyway, go on.
Yes. Sorry, I think for
Okay.
a second.
Oh wait,
It's on Wii.
you didn't specify that was an initial release on Wii though.
I'm going to assume it is initial release on Wii because
Okay,
I guess it could not be.
that's alright. That's alright. There's a Wii version of it.
I think you meant to say it's a Wii version of it.
Oh god.
Go away, Luke. No, wait, come back. Does this game have motion controls?
Yes.
Is this game part of a series?
Yes.
Was this game published by Nintendo?
Yes.
Okay. I'm vibing with Pikmin.
I'm 100%. I was just about to say I'm vibing with Pikmin as well. I don't know why that just came up. Okay, I'm just gonna say, is this game part of the Pikmin series?
No.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, he changed his mind.
It just,
I'll just point out
it filled
the,
so many
um,
gaps.
the on the video, there's now a new counter on that side of the screen. Instead of the hearts, it's now an actual number. Keep things a bit easier.
You know, it
Awesome.
looks really good. That we can definitely see it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it could be like I feel like we've already had that. The fucking Donkey Konga sequel, whatever.
The
Whatever
what?
that was called. You know Donkey Konga?
Yeah.
There was like a sequel thing to that, right? Like I can't
Jungle
remember.
Beat?
The Jungle
Yeah,
Beat one.
Yeah.
Is that got
Yeah,
released
yeah.
outside of GameCube?
Yeah,
I think it did.
was like on. It was on Wii with motion controls where you.
Oh yeah, no, it
Waggle
was
them.
on Wii.
Yeah.
Yeah. But did that get released in the 2010s though?
I mean, it was on Wii, so maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like
It's
it
a
was like a
50-50
2000
really.
I feel it was a
I feel like it was a
2009 release.
No, I feel like it was later, like, you know, not quite like end game, but close to it.
Well, okay, no, that makes sense.
You said it was part of a series though. Would we count Jungle Beat as part of a series? It's not really a Donkey Kong Country game.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Donkey
the
Konga
sequel
game
to
though. There's 3 Donkey Konga
Konga.
games.
Was that a Donkey
There's
Konga
4 Donkey
game?
Konga games technically. Yeah.
Was that part of the Konga series? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, does this game feature recognizable Nintendo characters?
Yes.
Okay. Like a
Hmm.
character that somebody would like look at and be like, wow, it's Nintendo. Like not like fucking Chibi Robo or whatever. Which nobody gives a fuck about. I'm just
Yes.
saying, like, you know.
I feel like I need to ask it and clarify that it was initially released on the Wii. Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Was the first release of this game on the Wii?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay.
So it's not a Konga
Let's
game.
Scrap any GameCube re-releases.
Motion controls, Wii, published by Nintendo, recognizable Nintendo characters.
I mean, it could be Donkey Kong Country Returns, because then, like, you know, that was on Wii and then 3DS and now Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why we're like pigeonhole ourselves into Donkey Kong.
This happens all the time.
Could ask if it's a
Because
side
Angelo
scroller.
mentioned a giant pile of bananas.
Sorry,
This
what did you
game's-
say, Angela?
As I say, is this game a side scroller?
Is that a question?
Yep.
No.
Oh
That is
man,
10.
it's published by Nintendo.
And I thank you for bringing up Donkey Konga. I've now just got the Donkey Konga looping in my head.
So I always have Donkey Konga, ba 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 da ba, Donkey Konga, da 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 da, stuck in my head.
Tough one. I'm like, what games even released on Wii?
Yeah, nothing.
What even came out on Wii?
Strobes?
Does this game have multiplayer?
Yes.
Has multiplayer.
So it's not going to be something like Metroid Prime, whatever. Like, can't be.
Do we consider something like Mario Galaxy 1 to have multiplayer when you can have what was called colloquially as girlfriend mode at the time? We have the
Technically, it does have multiplayer, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We could ask if the game features Mario. Because that does kind of like narrow it down a little bit, right? Because it's like sports games and shit, so it could be as well.
Could ask if it was like a flagship game in a series like Galaxy was for Mario.
I think if you ask Mario, we should ask if Mario is a main character. Because a lot of games just have like Mario like somewhere like the side.
I was thinking like Mario Strikers or something like that.
Or we could just ask if the word Mario is in the title, because that'll tell us if it's a... Yeah, sure. Is the word Mario in the title? Or Mario's or some variation of Mario? I'm not gonna fucking get caught on a technicality.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The motion controls multiplayer and is a Mario game. So like that could be a party, that could be a car.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically any game on Wii though. Like,
did Strikers have motion controls?
Yeah.
I feel like it had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you could do sick moves by wiggling the...
Alright. Is there a Mario Golf game on the Wii?
On Wii?
I don't remember if there was.
I feel like Mario Golf was like very much a handheld thing until it wasn't.
Is this a sports title?
It was on N64.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So...
Was there a Mario Golf on the Wii?
Was there a Mario Golf? Was there a Mario Baseball? Was there a Mario...
Sorry.
Was there a Mario mixed sports game?
I meant to say tennis. I'm an idiot.
Also tennis? There's definitely tennis. Mario Tennis is definitely on Wii.
Okay.
Oh, does this game have different names in America versus Europe or power regions?
No.
Okay, so it's not football then.
Yeah, but didn't didn't Strikers have a different name in Europe?
That's what I mean. It doesn't have a different name, right? Yeah.
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 But then there was like there was something else. One of the other sports games had a different name.
I was gonna ask if this game used a ball, but like so many sports games have balls in them. So
Can't think of a Mario sports game that doesn't have.
Yeah, true.
Oh wait, so I've already forgotten the first question. Was it released in the 2010s?
It was, yes.
All right, so which ones were released in the 2010s then? Strikers or whatever.
No idea.
Before that, wasn't it? Tennis. When was tennis?
No, sorry. It was released in the 2000s, not 2010s. I said after 2000. You said 2010s, right?
I said 2010s, and I couldn't remember if you said yes or no.
You said any release in 2010s, and you're like, yes. Then I was like, was it released?
No.
After.
I said initial release in the 2010s, didn't I?
No, because then you clarify by saying including any type of, because he was confused, right? And then you clarify by saying it was any type of release, like a remaster or anything. Confirm, Luke.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was that?
I thought my first question. I'm pretty sure I asked, was it initially released in the 2010s?
Yeah, and then Luke was like, he started being like, and then you were like, oh, that includes remasters or whatever, and then it was like, yes.
Ah,
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it got a re-release then.
then I asked, was it released on or after January 1st, 2000? And he said yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Strikers definitely came out prior to 2010.
Yeah, it did. And that's what I'm saying.
But I'm pretty sure Strikers has a different name, like Ollie and I were saying, in between the US and the PAL regions. So it could be tennis. I don't think there was a Mario baseball game on Wii from memory, like unless I'm really forgetting.
5 questions and a guess, just so.
Because baseball and golf are already in Wii Sports, and I feel like they didn't double dip in those games. Except for, I guess, tennis in that case, which kind of disregards
I'm
that
pretty
argument a
sure.
bit.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there wasn't a tennis game. I'm pretty sure
No,
there was though.
I don't remember a Mario tennis game.
I feel like there was, but it was like a GameCube port that like added.
I remember there was a Mario Tennis on 3D.
You just muted yourself, Angelo, halfway through. You're saying 3DS.
Yeah. Sorry, that's. I'm just about to look up if there was because I'm trying to.
Was that
In my head.
What was the first release of that multi-sport game? Was that on Wii? I remember that was that one on 3DS, the Sports Mix, or what the fuck it was called.
Sports
Was that?
Yeah, that
Did that come out on Wii?
Yeah. Definitely.
There was a Mario.
I
Tennis
honestly don't
game.
remember. I remember coming out on 3DS, but I don't know if that was the first one. But I generally don't recall.
There was a Mario Tennis on Wii.
There
Power
was,
Tennis?
okay.
Power Tennis, I think it's called.
Does this game feature more than one sport?
No.
The
Camera move as well.
Oh man, it's so good.
Okay, so it's a singular sports game. So it's not Sports Mix or whatever the hell it was called.
It's not Sports Mix. It's also not one of them. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which was what I was trying to eliminate.
Okay.
I can only think of tennis in that case.
And we have plenty. We've got 4 questions and a guess right now.
Unless he went fishing or something.
Wait, hold on. If tennis
Mario
was
fishing, yeah. Great.
If tennis was a GameCube re-release though, then it wouldn't have come out initially on Wii.
But it had, it had motion controls though.
Because we clarified that the game initially came out on Wii. You clarified that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure if the tennis was the GameCube re-release.
As in Mario Power Tennis originally released on GameCube and then came to Wii.
Correct.
Okay.
I feel like the only one that it could
So
be
what else
is
could it be?
Sluggers,
Yeah.
right? Like Super Mario Sluggers is the only one that it could be.
Unless he's
Hold on. Are we 100% sure that Strikers was called... Because I remember the GameCube one definitely was. The football one was definitely different in North America to Europe. Was Strikers different worldwide? Or did they just give up?
Yeah, they always put football in the title in the European version.
Yeah.
Because it was called Strikers here though, right?
Yeah, it was called like Mario Strikers Football.
Yeah.
Right, like it was or Mario Strikers Charged Football or whatever. Like
Yeah,
they always
something like
just
that.
add football to the end.
But not here though, right? Just in Europe you're talking about. I don't remember that being called
in all
here.
PAL regions. Yeah, all PAL
I
regions.
swear to God it's not called football in Australia. The GameCube one 100%. That I'm 100% sure on because I've got it on my shelf. The Wii one, I'm almost certain was just called Mario Strikers Charge in Australia because I remember playing it so much with mates.
I think the cover still says Mario Charge Football. I think like maybe when you get into the game, it just says Charge.
Okay, we have questions. It's either Sluggers or Strikers.
Or does he count Mario Kart as a sport? I'm not even being a prick. Like, does he
If
count?
that's
I
the
don't know.
case,
It's
that's fine.
true.
It's
All right. So how many questions do we have left? Is it still 4 and a guess?
4 and a guess.
Okay. Do you play this game with a bat? Sorry, like in the game. No, not like physically, like in the real world.
And he's not talking about an animal either.
You know what I mean.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
So it's
it's
sluggers then. It has to be sluggers.
Okay.
Unless the strikers has a bat in there you beat another player with, which is highly probable.
Wait. A racket is different to a bat, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
yeah, no,
okay.
we're not. Those are different things. You don't play tennis with a bat.
Some people might call it a bat. I don't know.
A tennis bat. I mean, it would be funny.
No, so it has to be sluggers then. Like that's it.
Yeah, it has to be sluggers.
Okay, go for it.
You're going, Michael. Ask.
Is this game Mario Sluggers or its original equivalent name, whatever the hell it's called?
Well, it's called Mario Super Sluggers. You can't just say sluggers because he will take the point from us.
Oh, okay, Mario. So what? Yeah, okay. Is it the Mario baseball game that came out on Wii?
Yeah, why would you take
Whatever the hell it's called, because like screw this pedantic bullshit.
Yes, it is.
Okay, God.
So originally, the game didn't release in PAL regions when the game released in Japan and North America. PAL got it only as a Wii U download title in 2016, which is why Angelo's initial question threw me, because I'm like, do I take the American release date, which is what we don't do, or do I take the Australian release date, which was 2016? And if I said, 2016, if I locked in for the 2010s exclusively, that would have thrown you, because now you're thinking, oh, games that just released in that decade, but this originally released in 2008 as a Wii game. And that's where I thought you'd get stuck being, okay, is it a Wii game, but it's on the Wii U? So, yeah, Mario Super Sluggers, made by Namco Bandai, published by Nintendo. And it's
back
the
before
sequel.
they did the switcheroo of the Namco and the Bandai.
All right.
Yeah.
Also, I take it back. It is called Strikers Charge Football in Australia. I do not remember that at all. I could swear it's just called Charged here.
But also through sports fans away is with the Mario Sports Mega Mix, or the Mario Sports Mix on the Wii. That was made by Squaresoft or Square Enix.
Oh, wow.
So, but yes, the Mario Tennis and Mario Golf on Wii were the new play controls style, which will port to the GameCube games, same as Pikmin 1 and 2, and Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was a new play control release.
Alrighty, well, that about wraps up this episode of the Vookcast. Be sure to visit the site, www.vooks.net, for your Nintendo news, reviews, and everything in between. To keep up to date, follow the site on Blue Sky, which is at vooks.net, or jump on over to our Discord at bit.ly/VooksDiscord. You can find all of our social information and links to all the stories covered in this episode in the episode notes on whatever platform you're listening to. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next show.